Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Monday, June 9th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Coming up, the controversy over a trans female athlete who competed in Clovis has escalated all the way to the federal government.
The DOJ sent out a letter earlier this past week threatening legal consequences if schools continue to allow trans athletes to compete.
We will dive into these developments and the local ramifications in just a moment.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you're going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money podcast from NPR.
Now to our conversation. A debate is broiling nationally about the role of transgender athletes in sports. And late last month, the city of Clovis unwittingly found itself at the epicenter. That is because the state track and field championships took place at Buchanan High School. And this year, a trans female athlete reached the finals and competed alongside other girls from across the state. The athlete is A.B. Hernandez from Jurupa Valley High School in Riverside County. She won a medal for each field event she took part in. The competition has been the subject of intense debate before, during, and after it took place, and now the Department of Justice has escalated the situation. Officials sent a letter to public schools in California threatening, quote, legal liability if they continue to allow trans females to compete in girls' sports, though it's unclear what type of penalties the DOJ may file. It gave schools a deadline of today to respond to its demands. We should acknowledge that this is a topic that's complex and evolving fast, and we as journalists in the KVPR newsroom are learning more about it as it develops and trying to bring you clarity. We have been bringing you regular updates on our newscasts as well as our website, and will continue to do so. For today's show, we're aiming to bring you up to speed about how this issue has developed here in the Central Valley. I am in the studio now with KVPR reporter Samantha Rangel, who's been covering this issue. Sam, welcome.
Hey, Liz.
So to start, I think it would be helpful to bring folks up to speed about how we got here. Can you give us a little recap of what happened before this year's high school track and field championships regarding the transgender female athlete?
Yeah, so there was a 16-year-old athlete from Jurupa Valley High School, and she made it to the CIF state finals in jumping field events. Now, President Trump caught word of this and put out this message on Truth Social. Essentially, he was just against trans athletes being in women's sports. He threatened to hold back large amounts of federal funding if the executive order wasn't adhered to. And then, of course, that triggered intense backlash against the athlete in the state. So all eyes at this point were on the game.
So there was a lot of buzz prior to the track and field meet, but how did things actually shake out? How did the student A.B. Hernandez perform, and was there any pushback at the event?
The protest that Clovis prepared for never really grew to the capacity that many thought. There was one incident of a physical altercation during protest and a plane with a banner protesting the rule change. Now, A.B. Hernandez earned 3 medals, and that was in long jump, high jump, and triple jump. And while she earned top marks, they weren't record-breaking wins, and the girls she competed with showed that it was a tight competition. But the argument and criticism against trans female athletes centers around this idea that they will outperform the cisgender females. So that's where the debate is that at its core, it's an unfair situation for girls.
Now, what about the students, though? Have we heard at all how fellow competitors actually felt being put in that situation?
On the field, the athletes appear to be getting along and just essentially focus on the competitions. Esther Quintanilla, with our news partner, Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, reported from the track meet that basically the games themselves went on without any major disruptions. At one point, though, an announcer did have to stop to tell the audience to please respect the young athletes. That was due to a few incidents of people yelling at the athletes, but overall, everyone was pretty focused on the competition.
So the CIF, which you mentioned, or the California Interscholastic Federation, is the governing body for high school sports in the state. Where have they stood on this issue of trans students competing in women's sports?
So this is something that CIF has to deal with because they happen to have a trans female student make it this far in a competition. And before the state finals, the CIF updated its rules, with the rule being that a transgender athlete can share a place medal and a spot on the podium, along with the cisgender girl that she beats. And this is in line with the CIF bylaw that also says the student can compete in a sport with the gender that they identify with, and the state law also allows this.
And how about in the community of Clovis? How have city leaders responded to this and sort of the spotlight that this championship has put on their community? Has there been any backlash?
Yeah, it's definitely been messy. A press conference before the championships took place, some officials shared their concerns about a trans female competing with cisgender females. Some officials misgendered A.B. Hernandez with the pronouns he and him. And after the games, this issue didn't go away. At a council meeting after events, it brought up some issues. One member, Lynn Ashbeck, criticized her council colleagues for taking part in these public stances on the issue. She essentially said that this isn't a fight for the city of Clovis and that no press conference or social media post can really solve an issue as complex as this one. Essentially, she seemed to say that public officials only added to the controversy, and she shared this caused the city to spend about $21,000 on extra police security for the games. But she also said she's worried the CIF may not want to hold the games in Clovis anymore, and that would be a $6 million loss for the city.
Wow, so really quantifying the impact here. Now, the Federal Department of Justice is at odds with the CIF's stance, and they basically told California schools that they have until today to say that they will not comply with the CIF policy, as I understand it. So how are schools responding, and what's at risk if these schools don't comply?
The DOJ sent out a letter earlier this past week threatening legal consequences if schools continue to allow trans athletes to compete, calling the CIF bylaw unconstitutional. And KVPR reached out to districts across the valley to ask how they're responding, and the few we did hear back from shared that they'd received a letter from the California Department of Education saying they would reply on behalf of all districts before the stated deadline. And what the state says is that the schools are following state and federal laws. From here, we don't quite know what the next move will be from the federal government.
Okay, sort of wait and see.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add, Sam?
Yeah, just that this isn't an issue that only California is experiencing. We've seen reports of similar debates around trans female athletes in high school sports happening from coast to coast, states like Washington, Minnesota, Connecticut, and Maine, and definitely some others. So now it's just a question of where this goes nationally and how this will affect what California does or doesn't do.
KVPR reporter Samantha Rangel, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Liz.
And that's today's show. Keep up with the latest news updates through our newscasts on air. You can catch those on 89.3 FM in the Fresno area and 89.1 in the Bakersfield area. You can also stream us on our website at kvpr.org or ask your smart speaker to play KVPR. If you've got a story idea, send it our way. You can email tips and feedback to podcast@kvpr.org. Today's episode was produced by Carrie Klein, Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado, and KVPR, with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.